Like livestock? Not in secret, not in some back alley. Broad damn daylight. Right there on Red Hollow's dusty main street, between the saloon and the bakery, as casual as selling a mule. No shame, no whispers, just a cage. An old wooden thing, like you'd throw a dog in, and inside it, a girl, barely 24. Skin bruised like old fruit, ripped white dress hanging off her shoulders, dirt smeared into her arms and face, wrists tied tight in front with frayed rope, red and raw like she'd been pulling for hours, and nobody acted like it was wrong. A crowd gathered like it was a county fair. Men with beers, women with baskets, kids, even, laughing, watching. Royce Tiller, that mean son of a gun, stood on a crate and hollered like he was hosting a pig auction. Called her a wild bitch, said she bit him when he tried to break her in. Spit flew from his mouth as he mocked her. Said he'd had enough trouble with her, so now he was offering a discount. $1, he yelled. Who wants a piece of wild meat for just $1? That's all she was to them. Not a person, not a soul, just meat. And the worst part, not the sheriff, not the preacher. Not the school teacher or the old folks watching from their porches said a damn word. Just dust and silence and eyes that looked away. That wasn't just a girl being humiliated. That was a town gone sour. Then, through the stillness, a sound, real soft, like the creak of a barn door swinging slow. A hand rose in the back. Jonah Briggs, mid-50s, worn hat, tired boots, stubble like he'd quit caring. He walked forward without a word, calm and solid. Looked at Royce, then at the girl, then said, real plain, $1. No one clapped. No one laughed. Royce blinked like someone threw cold water in his face, but he didn't argue. He handed over the rope. Jonah stepped up, untied her wrists, put his coat over her shoulders, and walked away with her, just like that. He didn't ask her name, didn't know her story, didn't need to. He just knew he couldn't let her stay in that cage one more minute. And maybe, just maybe, that's when everything started to change. But who the hell was Jonah Briggs, and why did he care? When nobody else gave a damn, Jonah never asked why she was there. He didn't ask what she did or where she came from. He just gave her the spare room, a clean dress, and an old mug that used to belong to his wife. Then he went back to mending fences and feeding livestock like nothing had changed. But something had. Clara didn't cry. She didn't talk. She didn't flinch when the wind slammed the door or when the coyote howled at midnight. She just moved through the house like a whisper, quiet but not invisible, always watching, always working. Jonah thought she'd be scared, maybe angry. But she wasn't either. She was focused. She'd sweep the porch before dawn, fix the broken hinges, cook plain food but neat. One morning, she was patching up one of his old shirts like she'd been living there her whole life. She even fixed the chicken coop. And that thing hadn't been touched since his wife passed. Still, she didn't say a word. At first, Jonah talked to himself, out loud, muttering about the weather, the cows, the damn squirrels chewing up the fence posts. But after a while, he realized he wasn't talking to himself anymore. He was talking to her, and somehow, she was listening. Then one night, a storm rolled in, one of those hard ones, loud and mean. Jonah woke up to the sound of rain like hammers on the roof, and there she was, standing barefoot in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself like a child lost in her own home. He didn't touch her, just nodded and opened the door to the kitchen. They sat there for 2 hours, no words, just coffee. Wind rattling the windows, and something soft shifting between them. Not love, not yet, but something warmer than silence. The next morning, she laid out breakfast, and next to his plate was a hand-stitched cloth napkin. His initials on one side, hers on the other. She still hadn't said a word, but Jonah knew she had started to stay. Some folks talk too much, others say more with the quiet. But what happens when silence starts to carry a name? Jonah was fixing the barn door when it happened. He heard a crash in the kitchen, sharp and fast, like glass hitting tile. He walked in and found Clara sitting on the floor, a broken cup beside her, blood on her hand. She looked up but didn't panic, didn't cry, just held out her palm like it didn't even hurt. He grabbed a rag, wrapped it gently, then stepped back to give her space. She stood up, walked over to the fireplace, and without a word, reached for a piece of old wood from the pile. With her bandaged hand, she dipped her finger in her own blood and began to write. Slow, careful strokes. C-L-A. He stood there, frozen. R-A. Then she hesitated, then kept going. V-O-S-S. When she finished, she stared at it. That name, her name, written in red. Then she wiped her hand on her skirt and walked out the door, just as calm as she came in. Jonah didn't follow. He just sat down in the chair she'd left empty and looked at the name on that piece of wood. He hadn't seen anyone fight that quiet in a long time. Later that night, he picked up a piece of wood himself, carved his name into it, small, barely noticeable. Then he placed it next to hers on the mantel. Side by side, some people carve their names into trees, others into tombstones, but sometimes the strongest names are the ones written when nobody's watching. And if you're still here with us, still following this quiet little story of two people who never meant to cross paths, maybe give this channel a follow. It helps more stories like this find folks who still believe in second chances. It had been quiet for weeks, the kind of quiet Jonah liked. Just the creak of the porch, the snort of a horse in the barn, and the sound of Clara humming low while she boiled coffee at sunrise. Then one afternoon, he saw the dust first, a single rider cutting across the plain. Slow, deliberate. Jonah didn't need to squint. He knew that walk, that smug way a man leans in his saddle when he thinks the world owes him something. Royce Tiller had come back. He rode up to the gate, dismounted, and just stood there like the land belonged to him. Same old scar on his face, same eyes full of poison. Jonah stepped out with a steady hand. No rifle, just his voice. Royce smiled like he already won. I came to get what's mine. Jonah didn't answer. He walked forward, calm as a preacher on Sunday, and stopped just close enough to make it personal. Then, without a blink, he pulled the revolver from his hip and fired one clean shot into the ground, not 2 feet from Royce's boots. The sound cracked through the air like thunder off a canyon wall. Royce flinched. For the first time, that smirk dropped. She ain't yours. Not then. Not now. Behind Jonah, Clara appeared on the porch. No words, just holding that same wooden board with her name on it. Royce looked at her, then looked back at Jonah. You're gonna regret this. Jonah stepped forward 1 more inch. No, you are. Royce backed off, got on his horse without another word, rode off slower than he came. The dust behind him didn't even bother to rise. Later that night, Clara left that wooden nameplate on the table. Jonah added his beside it again. Side by side, no bullets fired, but a battle won all the same. It wasn't about fighting. It was about standing still when the wrong thing comes knocking. But what happens after the storm passes, and there's nothing left to hide behind? Things settled after that. Royce never came back. No one in town spoke much about what happened. But when Jonah rode into town for supplies, folks nodded a little lower, tipped their hats a little longer. At home, things didn't change much on the outside. Clara still kept to her rhythms, still fixed what needed fixing, still made the coffee strong and the breakfast quiet. But the silences felt different now. Softer. Some nights, they'd sit on the porch, not talking, just listening to the wind. Jonah would tell stories about when he was younger, about his wife, about how he used to think second chances were a young man's game. Clara never said much, but she'd smile more, stay longer in the kitchen. Once, she even laughed at one of his bad jokes. And one morning, just as the sun came up, Jonah walked out to the porch and found 2 mugs sitting side by side. Not because someone set them there, but because 2 people, without saying it, had started to wake up at the same time. They never talked about love, but some kinds of love don't need explaining. They show up in stitched napkins, in patched shirts, in shared silence, in $1 spent when nobody else would. You ever wonder what it takes to start over? It's not a storm, not a miracle. Sometimes it's just a quiet man who shows up when no one else will. And a woman who learns how to write her name again. If you're still here, Maybe this story touched something in you. Maybe it reminded you of someone you miss, or something you thought you'd never feel again. If it did, give this video a like. And if you want to hear more stories like this,